There's a reason Korea, along with Japan, is the highest suicide rate of high school students and students in general under 18. Everything, whether it's your friends, family, and status as a person, a student, is based on your grades, your studying ability. So it was insane. I felt so stupid working for Amazon, to be honest, because the engineers were just so smart, out of this world smart. Amazon interviews hit different. They just not look at you as, okay, this good is math, science, coding, algorithm. It's not just that. They look at your life story. They look at principles. I was born in Maryland, USA. My parents were students during that time. So my dad was doing his PhD in the US. He was studying mechanical engineering and aerospace engineering during that time for his PhD. So when I was born there, my parents didn't really have a lot. They were students. My mom was also a grad student, but they were getting some support from my grandfather, who was a professor in Korea at that time, also an engineer. So I came from a family of engineers, mostly in the mechanical, electronic, and aerospace place. So it was always like, oh, you gotta study math, you gotta be good at engineering, you gotta build things. So I think that kind of engineering gene kind of was there since I was very, very little. Not just with like playing with Legos when I was little, but I always wanted to save like a little yogurt bottle or a little bottle to build things. So my parents say, when I was like 5 or 6, I would save all these like little, things from the trash in the house and try to build like things with popsicle sticks or like Korean chopsticks and things like that. So that was my youth in the US in the beginning until I was 10 years old. And then 10 years old, I suddenly had a change where my dad got a job as a professor in South Korea. So the whole family moved. My younger brother, who was 6 at that time, and I, who was 10 years old, we could only speak English. So when I was 10 years old, I moved to Korea. And in Korea, it was very hard for me. I didn't know the Korean language. The grammar in Korea was all messed up, for me. I couldn't understand the language. It was opposite grammar of the US. That's why so many Koreans and Japanese don't really speak English as well, to be honest. It was very hard for me to study in school. And Korea is a very, very study-oriented country. So when I was 10 years old, they have their midterm exam, they have their final exam. And it's not A, B, C. It's out of 100 points for each test. Maybe you get, if you're very good, you get 95 points. But if you're very bad, you get maybe 10 points after every question is maybe 5 points or 2 points or 1 point. So all these questions has a point system to 100 points for each test. And because I didn't speak Korean at the time, when I was a straight A student in elementary school in the US, I didn't know the language. I was a very, very poor student. In the whole school, in my grade was 285 students. I was at the bottom 280 student of all the school grade. And also in my class, there was one mentally challenged kid. I was below that kid. So I was worse than the mentally, physically challenged kid because my language was very, very bad. So I thought I was like stupid because I didn't know the language. I would bring like a little, writing. My friend would write the Korean for me of like what I needed for school the next day. My mom would translate that in English. And then I would understand, okay, I need like pencil, I need eraser, I need like, paintbrushes, right? And then after the translation, then I would understand. So I had a very, very hard childhood. I had a funny accent in Korean as well. I could barely speak Korean, so all the kids would make fun of me because I didn't know Korean when I was 10 years old. But eventually, with like hard training in Korean, the language, I eventually got better. And because of that traumatizing experience where the teacher, I told you I was the worst student in my classroom, right? The teacher would write down the top 10 students all the way to the 45th student. That was me. I was the worst student. And my name would be on the bottom, so they would know I was worse than the mentally challenged kid. So everyone would make fun of me, and they seated the kids based on their grade every exam. It was traumatizing. It was really traumatizing. So my last semester of when I was 10 years old in the 3rd grade in Korea, I was almost crying like constantly because the kids would make fun of me. With that trauma in mind, during the winter vacation, I remember I studied Korean like a crazy person. I studied the language very hard to get into a basic sufficient amount. And later, studying became everything because in Korea, you're ranked by your grades, your peer group is by your grades, your social status is by how good your exam. There's a reason Korea, along with Japan, is the highest suicide rate of high school students as students in general, under 18. We have the most suicides because everything, whether it's your friends, family, and status as a person, a student, is based on your grades, your studying ability. So it was insane. After school, I would go to these places called Hackathon and study like crazy in these institutes where other kids would compete to have better grades. We were like, trying to study high school math in elementary school and college math, and furthermore, like sometimes even PhD level ones to become the best math students in Korea. We would have these contests almost every year. Who's the best in math that's under 18 years old? So I was just studying like crazy, 2 a.m. in the morning, and less than like 4 or 5 hours of sleep per day since I was almost 11. So with all this crazy training, with studying, malnutrition almost sometimes because my parents would send me to these places. In middle school, I was doing pretty good at studying because it was my whole life. Engineering, math, going to science project competitions, math competitions. I was doing like college-based math during that time. So my studying went up. End of my 6th grade, 13, 12 years old, I would be the top 10 student in the classroom. Middle school, I was number 1 student of the entire grade of more than 500 people at that time in middle school. Then high school, I was top, valedictorian, and then in college in Yonsei University, one of the best universities in Korea, like they call it Sky Seoul National, Korea University, Yonsei University, and Yonsei was like for the top engineering kids. I went there, studied computer science and engineering and industrial engineering. So that's where I, studied computer science. That was like my entire high school childhood and trauma. Like I have to study to be a valid human being because if you look at Korea as a whole, it's like a country cut in half with North Korea trying to kill you every day, right? So they're trying to nuke South Korea, nuclear bomb the place. And all we have as a survival tool, kind of like Taiwan right now, but just won't go there. All we have as a survival tool for South Koreans is in the brain. We have no oil, we have no natural resources, we're surrounded by water. So what do we have? We have ships and we have our brain. So we get petrol, we make him, and we get sand, we make him into microchips, kind of like Taiwan. We make silicon wafers, cut them up, that's where Silicon Valley comes in. And then we make those microchips, sell them like Samsung does, like LG does. We get resources, use our brain somehow, and sell it abroad to make sure we're valuable in the world, in the marketplace. Make sure North Korea doesn't kill us because we got, Samsung phones and K-pop. America is, helping us not get nuked by North Korea, and all we have in survival is studying like hell since you're elementary school. So that was my traumatic history in Korea. That's how I became an engineer in college. And my identity as a male, as a person was, okay, you're not gonna get married unless you make money and survive. So they give it to you hard when you're elementary school kids. So all throughout kids, your value is connected with your grades, how good you are in school. It's unlike the US where you can be like the cool rapper kid. You can do like rapping, or you can shoot hoops, you can be good athletic, super strong guy, you look handsome, and then you can be a model or something. Korea doesn't really have that. It's either you're really good at engineering, you become a doctor, you make some money and you become super rich. It's either that or Recently, a lot of people in Korea want to be YouTubers or K-pop stars. I think that's a very, very good trend. But when I was little, all we had was you study, become a doctor, or you're dead. You become a failure. You become a failure. That was my childhood. Very, very traumatic. But hey, I'm here today. I'm very, very happy and very grateful for my parents to be able to educate me, be able to have, give me what is actually how the world works when I was little. A lot of kids nowadays, I think they're coddled, they're, kept in like this little bubble, but my parents were like, hey, you don't make money, we love you right now, but if you don't make value to the marketplace, you don't have intellectual, capacity, you're worthless to this world. And you're probably not gonna get married and have kids, That was like the mentality they intrigued in me. And I'm thankful part of that, and I'm thankful for my parents, like my grandfather and my father, really distilling what it is to be an engineer, what it is to build things, and inspire me to be an engineer from my grandfather and my father, who I really respect, and made me who I am today was my father, grandfather, and a loving mother who really helped out. She was more like my talent manager almost. Like my mother, when I was little, she would drive me to all these math competitions, English speaking competitions. She would schedule what kind of places, what I had to study that day. 5 a.m. in the morning, she would wake me up. And because, of course, I was a very ambitious student as well. I wanted to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning. And she would, while I was kind of half asleep, she would ask questions. Okay, what is like, this equation for math? And I would say that in my sleep. Okay, this is the equation, 1, 2, 3. This is the numbers. I would do that in my head like a crazy person, like a crazy engineer. My mom would speak the, the engineering quizzes, the science quizzes. I was crazy about science. I was crazy about rockets, shooting, things like, maybe it was because North Korea was kind of going crazy. I wanted to build missiles when I was little. So I would build these small rockets, and my mom would encourage me to, get those empty bottles from the trash can, make these bottle rockets, build something out of engineering. And I'm really thankful for my supportive mom for, letting a kid, get messy with digging trash and trying to make something out of it. My mom would encourage me to do that. And since I was 3, 4 years old, I still remember to this day, my mom would teach me how to read a watch, not just the digital watch, but she would teach me how to read numbers, even money even. Like, think about it. A 3, 4-year-old kid, she sits them down and teach them how to count money. Like, what kind of mom would do that, to be honest? A mom who thinks about his kids' survival in the world. She grew up, very interestingly, she grew up with my grandfather on my mom's side was an orphan. So she grew up a very young childhood, a little bit poor. And she knew the survival because her grandfather was also a soldier from North Korea. So the grandfather's parents died because of a plague in North Korea. So he just saw his parents die because of the plague. And he was so scared, he just left everything in the house and just started running away from home. And once he grew up, the North Korean army took him when he was 16, 17, very, very young age, like a middle school kid, and taught him how to kill people. So my grandfather on my mom's side would start shooting at South Korean soldiers, right? And start killing people, executing people. But he fell in love with a South Korean woman. A South Korean man, he was head over heels with this woman, super in love. And when the war got really, really physical, my grandmother had to leave for Busan, the very, very south of Korea. But my grandfather was very, very infatuated, very, very fall in love. And he said, I don't care about communism. I don't care about the North Korean army. I just want to find the love of my life, the love of my life. So when a bomb from the US plane hit his barracks, everything was chaos. He stripped naked all the way to his underwear. He stripped naked, everything, and he started running. He started running for hours towards South Korea, running for days. And it took him 14 days of walking, running, almost no food. And then he met my grandmother. And then he had 5 children. After he met his grandmother, he became South Korean citizen. And he still sounds North Korean, to be honest. The way he sounds in Korean, he still sounds North Korean. He started a salt company. So they barely did anything. They were more like laborers. He started working at a salt farm, digging up water from the ocean, drying it, and doing the hard labor for salt. And then once he had that salt, his manager, his boss, saw him as a very, very good guy. Then he started managing people. And then he had enough money to buy his first salt farm, the first salt farm. And then from that, he grew his business. He got rid of his competitors. He was a ruthless businessman. He became one of the biggest salt companies in Korea. And he became a very, very wealthy man, several buildings right now. And that's how he started. But my mom saw the whole process. My mom saw when he was a small laborer for a salt farm and become the business man he is today. He saw that in the beginning. And my mom saw that in me as well. She saw that, okay, when my son is born, day one, I'm going to teach him how to count money. That was my mom. She had a vision of raising this child. She had a vision of raising me. And the funny thing is, like, most kids would be stressed out. Most kids would, don't like it. I don't want to study. I want to play out with my kids. I don't like reading books all day. What kind of kid would wake up 5 a.m. in the morning, sleep at 2 a.m. with less than 3 hours of sleep every day, and follow that? That kid would be suicidal. Kid would have depression. But my mom always told me she loved me. She gave me the harsh reality of the world and showed me, hey, this is what the world is. I love you, son. I love you. I care for you. And I felt that. I felt how much she loved me, how much she cared for me because of everything she did physically. And because of that love, I knew I couldn't give up on her. I knew I was meant to work hard and do great things, something to make my parents proud. And that belief in me, instilled in me, got me to work harder. And being a kid, you don't really mature as fast. And that trigger, sometimes doesn't happen as fast. And I think that trauma, whether it was, being an Asian kid in the U.S. and Maryland and West Virginia and New Mexico, different places I grew up, having that kind of a little bit of bullying because I was Asian in the U.S. when I was very little, and the bullying in Korea because people thought I was mentally challenged because of my grades and I spoke funny in Korean. Those kind of things gave me that trauma to want to prove myself. The first real kind of trauma I had after that traumatic experience from being bullied because of that was my first taste of success. So I was really good at English, like you can see from my pronunciation. I'm of course living in Korea more than 15 years gave me a little bit of a Korean accent in my English as well. But I spoke English. I went to English speaking contests when I was in elementary school, and because I was good at speaking English with all these Koreans not really good at English, I was top number 3 in all of Korea for this English speaking contest. Then I went to get a prize in front of, more than 1,000 students would line up in front of the school for this monthly event, once a month. If there was a great prize, if there was like some kind of event like I had, I was number 3 in Korea for this contest among elementary school kids. That was my first taste of fame, success, and achieving something. All the kids after that kind of looked up to me. Hey, this guy kind of sounds a little bit mentally challenged sounding kid, but he is great at English. I mean, he got that, prize from the school president, from the principal. And I felt so amazing after that. And that is kind of the first taste, what drove me to really achieve. And that was the first time the girl I had a crush on during elementary school, Soo-hyun, you know who you are. I still have a crush on you, to be honest. Just kidding. It's been many years. She's married already. But she was the main motivator for me to achieve like that. And then I found after that prize, she liked me. And then that was like, okay, this is how I get very popular. I study hard, I go to math contests, science contests, I keep winning prizes in front of the whole school. You're like a rock star if you're good at math in Korea. You're a rock star. You're good at science, you get all these prizes, you're super good academically. Your name is in front of the school billboard. You get trophies. It's like being an athlete. And in elementary school, middle school, high school, I would keep getting these trophies. I would be on the local news like an athlete. They would praise me. And I would get so many love letters from my crushes and my schoolmates who I was very attracted to at that time. So it's kind of like being an athlete in the US. You're very good at football in the US. Then you have a lot of cheerleaders liking you. The cheerleaders would love you if you're good at math in Korea or science. So that's why one of the very, very motivating factors for me, of course, when I was younger at that time. And my mom would cheer for me. Her social status would go up too. Of course, you have a good husband who is very wealthy and a very well-known professor, world class at what he does. You get some status too, right? But if your son is number one in Korea on math contest or in a science fair, I was number one in chemistry at that time, then your social status goes through the roof and you become an elite group of these women who have sons in the top elite. So that was kind of my childhood growing up. There's even K-dramas about that too. Like K-dramas, Gangnam, Ajumma, like Gangnam. There's a small district in Korea. I think you guys heard about Gangnam Style. So Gangnam Style is where all the rich kids are, where a lot of the prominent families are. But you can get into that circle not just for being rich or you're having a very, very good family. Our family was, professor's salary is not as good, to be honest, as a businessman or even like a person who owns a construction company. So the way we got into that circle was my younger brother and I being really good at math, being good at science, studying really hard, becoming the academically number one student in the entire school or the district or even the city. Because we were studying hard, we could get into the circles inside Gangnam. And then there are 8 schools in that area in Gangnam. They call it the Palhakgun, or the 8 school districts, where if you're the top students in all of Korea, you get into those schools. And that's kind of like how I got into Taechi, Dong, like that area. And it was just the Olympics of studying, Olympics of crazy studying. And that's where I got a lot of female attention, to be honest. I look like this, guys. I got eyeglasses. I'm a nerdy guy. How am I going to get the female attention, right? All I could do, if you're good at basketball, you're a good swimmer, you don't get any of that in Korea. Like during my time, maybe now you can, but you're a good YouTuber, maybe you're a K-pop star, you're gonna get female attention. But my time, the way I could do it was studying, being an athlete in academics, in programming contests. Since I was little, like high school, middle school, I would start doing these crazy algorithms. So algorithm contests, programming contests, and that's how you get female attention in South Korea. Being like a Samsung guy. That's how they train you to be that engineer. And now that's the product. That's the product of me in South Korea, that small country cut in half, where the only way we don't get nuked is by making Samsung phones, being an engineer. So my younger childhood life riddled with trying to become an athlete of academics, with math, science, and engineering, becoming the best programmer I can become. And then as soon as I get in college, that life, the intensity of that life has a lot of stories. I can go on with my interesting experiences with UC Berkeley, where I participated in some crazy events in American colleges like UC Berkeley, one of the most prestigious engineering schools in America. I participated in the Naked Run, where thousands of students in Berkeley, stripped naked, they run around the library It's a very interesting story about that. But before that, I want to talk about my university life in Korea when I was in Yonsei University. So you go through hell, okay, like maybe like, several hundred students commit suicide trying to get into this university. And you're finally in that good university. What happens? The first semester, party time. The party time happens because you were so stressed all your life and you've tried to achieve the goal of getting into this good university. Like, what do? Your whole childhood was thrown away out of the roof and you can finally have some fun in university. They give you some breathing time in Korea. That is the time I drank alcohol for the first time. That is the first time I ever had a girlfriend in my life, my first relationship when I was in college. So many crazy things happened in my first time during that time. And then when I go and leave for an exchange student program in UC Berkeley, that's actually 2012, when I actually met my co-founder, Jesse Krieger. So during that time in UC Berkeley, I was one of the students in Yonsei University after becoming the top engineer at my school academically. They sent me over to UC Berkeley to compete and actually start this exchange student program. So out of 12 students that were sent because they were the top students in South Korea, Yonsei University, they sent over. I was the only student that was good at English enough and engineer to be sent to UC Berkeley to start working there. So when I was there, I met my co-founder Jesse Krieger. I had many startup ideas. I was constantly inspired actually by several people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, all these people, Peter Thiel. I was inspired by the entrepreneurs when I was in college. They were engineers at the same time. They were very successful people that I really looked up to. So my idol at that time was people who started these tech companies. And I wanted to build my tech company at the time. And when I went to Berkeley, UC Berkeley, I went to many programming contests like hackathons. I was number one for this programming contest in UC Berkeley where they gave me investment money. And this idea in Berkeley was at the time, I was very lonely. I just broke up with my girlfriend while I was going to UC Berkeley. I was very single. I was very sad. And what happened when I was very sad, lonely at UC Berkeley at a new school was, okay, I'm surrounded by engineer students. They're all guys. How can I get some way to get a new girlfriend, and how do I know what kind of people, especially with, when I was young, 20 at the time, very young, all I cared about was having a beautiful girlfriend, like you. Someone very beautiful. I wanted to meet somebody. And how can I do that? I built this website called Class Blueprint, where you can select classes based on people's facial and also photos, body and face photos. So you take a lot of selfies of yourself, you put it on our website and select the classes you're gonna take. When I was a student at Berkeley, I was talking about being very single. I was just broke up with my girlfriend. I was sad, lonely, surrounded by male engineer students. They were all from India, China, Korea, Japan, all these male students. Some of them didn't even speak English. They could only speak math. So some of these kids, I try to communicate them. For example, my Japanese friend, who I very respect, one of the top engineers from Japan, he didn't speak any English. He was just super good at math. So we would talk in code sometimes, talk on a piece of paper instead for our projects. So I was very sad and lonely at that time. I went to this programming contest, and what I built was a website called Class Blueprint, where you could let female students, male students, they would upload selfies, body photos, swimsuit photos of themselves, and show what kind of classes they are taking, what kind of classes. And so they would chat to each other, message each other, and take classes based on their facial features, their body type, how they looked, what kind of people they wanted to date. So that was the website I built called Class Blueprint. It was like the dating system before you take classes. So all these engineer students, they would take nursing, they would take music classes, they would take economic classes that didn't even fit their own curriculum to graduate. What kind of engineer takes a nursing class to learn how to put an IV in their arm, right? But you see all these engineer dorky, glass fitting English, people, engineers, learn how to put a lingual inside of their arm. Like, okay, let's get a syringe, let's put it in the arm, and some nerdy guy like me would come around and just try to not even participate in the class. They get an F for all they know. They were just trying to get beautiful female attention. And that was one of me. Like, my whole semester was just full of nursing class, economics, random literature class. I learned Yiddish. I learned random language classes just to get female attention in UC Berkeley. That was my first semester when I was very, very lonely, single, and wanted to build that website for very nerdy kids like me. So that was my first business. And during that time, there was an incubator called University Incubator. And I knew the founder of that, Jesse Krieger, and the CFO of UC Berkeley was building this for students to build their business. I say, hey, I won this for first prize. I won this for all of the programming contests of UC Berkeley students. Out of hundreds and thousands of engineer students, I was number one because of this idea to get engineers laid. And after that, I applied to this business incubator, which I got funding for the first time at this incubator. That's when I tasted my first initial taste of Silicon Valley. I went to San Francisco, which was close to UC Berkeley at that time, just a drive away. And I met so many great entrepreneurs, so many Silicon Valley venture capitalists, many, many people in Silicon Valley, and engineers that had the same mentality as me. And that's when I very, very got excited about building startups, building my own company. In 2012, after the exchange student program, sadly through that website, I did not get a girlfriend. So sad. I had to come back to Korea after 1 year. And that business model failed for several reasons, especially one was just mostly male students used the website instead of female students. So that was one of the rare cases I've kind of miscalculated my business model. But after I went to Korea, I saw, hey, I tasted Silicon Valley. I know how it feels to build this startup. I'm excited about technical companies. I saw the vision of what I could do in Silicon Valley. So that's where I started my gaming company in South Korea at that time. When I came back 2013 in Korea, 2014 I got my first VC firm in entertainment venture capital in Korea, where I got my first VC money. And I started building 15 different mobile games. I knew during that time, mobile gaming is going to be very hot. And I built several mobile games with a game engine called Unity 3D and Unreal Engine. I was very good at these programming languages called C++ and C# at that time. So with this programming language, I built 15 different games. But we were competing against very, very big game companies in Korea. It was so competitive. And I didn't really know much about managing engineers, product management, marketing. I didn't know any of that. I was just a good engineer. That's all I had. So my business failed. We lost the funding. We just lost so much money for my first VC invested company, getting that venture capital in Korea. In 2016, I had to get a job. I was broke, I was in debt, I had to get a job. So I got a job because of many programming contests. I got a job at Visa Card. I started to learn how to manage people. I started to learn product management, agile programming. How do I make these engineers work hard for me? Because my boss at the time was a very, very good manager. One of the top engineering managers I've ever met was from Visa Card. And I had two managers, two bosses at the time, the 2 years I worked there. I want to give a shout out to my managers who really encouraged me, mentored me, helped me become the best engineer I can be by showing how to manage, engineer a great team, have a great vision and leadership. That's why Visa was, and it still is, one of the best companies in the world, is why they have a great vision. They have a great type of engineering culture. I digress. But that was where I learned all these management skills, all these marketing skills. What is branding? What is marketing? What is people? How to really work with a team. How to collaborate with code when you have multiple engineers. I learned that skill then, and 2 years there, I wanted to try a startup because my vision was already always having my own company. I started to work at a mid-sized but very good company that later sold to GoDaddy for a very, very large amount of money. The CEO was an amazing guy who was ex-PayPal, one of the PayPal mafia guys. And he was a visionary, a very, very good leader. And within 5 years, he sold his company to GoDaddy for almost, I think, even more than $1 billion. And after that company got sold, the problem was I was like, I should have stayed there a lot longer, but I got hired by Amazon before the company got sold. So sadly, my stock options didn't really mature as much. So I didn't really get that much money from the sale. But working at Amazon as a software engineer, then I went to the big guns, one of the top FANG companies, they call it, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, FANG company. The top Olympic athlete engineers go to these companies, the top of the top. I wanted to be an Olympic athlete, the world stage programmer. That's where I went to Amazon for 2 years. That's where I had to really compete. I felt so stupid working for Amazon, to be honest, because the engineers were just so smart, out of this world smart. Like you see the geniuses that are autistic, they can't speak, they had never had a girlfriend in their life. You know, all these engineer stereotypes, they're in those FANG companies like Amazon, where I worked for. And being an engineer at Amazon, these geniuses from all over the world, some don't even speak English. They're just super good at programming. And competing with these guys, I felt stupid almost every day. I felt like the dumbest person in the room every day, just being around these super smart people. And it humbled me because in Korea, man, I could be the big shot. Hey, I went to Yonsei University, I went to Berkeley, I'm super smart, you know, I'm all this, all that. I go to Amazon, I'm the stupidest guy in the room every single time. And just learned so much from the best engineers in the world. Shout out to my team, who was in the company at the time at Lab 126, the best Silicon Valley Amazon team that's ever been there. Just being in this amazing laboratory of super smart people, building the best AI systems, the blockchain systems, building the best high-end data mining company in the world with so many resources. They hired the best of the best. The interview process was hell. The interview I took was just out of this world, even compared with Visa or the startups in Silicon Valley. Amazon interviews hit different. They just not look at you as, okay, this good as math, science, coding, algorithms. It's not just that. They look at your life story. They look at principles, the principles of Amazon. For example, one is customer obsession. One is, providing, diving deep. All these principles of Amazon, they look at the core of you, who you are as a person, as well as the coding, excellence. That's the top bar, raising the bar at Amazon. But the real amazing thing I took away from Amazon is those principles of Amazon. It's almost like a religion there, to be honest. These principles, they hire by those principles, they fire by those principles. And being a part of that really enthusiastic group, we would not even go to our families and friends. We would live inside of Amazon, work till 2 a.m. in the morning. But we did it not just because we were paid really, really high prices. We would be excited about it because of the technology we're bringing to the future in Amazon. We were changing the world in this small computer we had inside of the office. Like the next generation things that would actually change the world and Amazon as a whole for the next 10 years was built in that laboratory. And I was excited. I would do all-nighters. I would live there, be fed there, not even have a girlfriend there because I was so excited about what they were doing at Amazon. And that really rubbed on me. The core principles of Amazon, how they did engineering, how they made employees excited, how they made the team excited, the engineering, so exciting, groundbreaking technology, changing the world for a better place in Amazon. That is what I wanted to bring into my own startup. And it's been a blast, world-class engineer manager. My favorite mentor and manager at the time, my boss, Paul. I want to give a shout out to him, Paul, directly, because he's helped me so much. Paul was Paul Bernard. He was like the engineer manager that really mentored me throughout the process of not just the principles of how to work, but as even a family man. He brought his team to his family for dinner. He took care of people in general. And that kind of management style, being not just the boss, but being a human being, bringing me to his family, like in front of his children. Like who would bring an employee in front of his children, in front of his family, and actually feed us dinner, like, drink with us, be part of the family? That kind of management style is what really rubbed on me to build a family. So I was super excited to learn so much from Paul. I just want to thank him very much. Whatever I do, I feel Paul is that mentor who helped me through the process in Amazon, not just as an employee, but as a friend and mentor. Paul, I wanted to shout out to you. And people who say, hey, Jeff Bezos is the guy, some billionaire who doesn't care about his employees. Some people kind of think like that, but the culture and people I met in Amazon Lab 126 was just amazing. And that is where I learned so much. And after 2 years of that, I still I had that itch. Okay, I got the skill set, I got the leadership, things, and I had the ways to engineer manage. I learned about collaborating with engineers. I had all the tool sets finally that I needed after 6 years of being in Silicon Valley. I had all the tools that I needed to build my company. What I do? The pandemic hit. The pandemic. We can't, maybe on YouTube we can't say the exact code name for the virus, but after the pandemic and things happened with some people call it the Rona, but after that hit, I was in my house. I was programming alone. I didn't have that mentorship, day-to-day conversations with my boss at Amazon. Like, I was a little bit depressed at that time when I was working at home all day. I didn't really have a family. I didn't really have a wife and kids to, be with. I was just alone in Silicon Valley, and all my family was in South Korea. So I said, hey, I got the tool set, I got the money, I have the capital. I want to start my company. Being in Silicon Valley 6 years, you have some wealth, you have some money. And just looking at my bank account rise and my stock price rise, my stock options, when you're a lonely single man in Silicon Valley, it doesn't matter. If you have no family, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You're not going to use that money for kids and family. You're just a single guy in Silicon Valley. So what do? I started my own company. I wanted to have autonomy and use those tools that I learned from Silicon Valley to make my own startup. And during the pandemic, I was very, very passionate about blockchain technology. The skill set I learned being in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. I was excited about NFTs. I was excited about the creator space and blockchain. I won 3 world championships since 2016, 17, 18. Every year I was top 3 in the world, top 1 in the world, top 2 in the world of blockchain technology with my programming skill set in just blockchain. So I wanted to use that skill set, and I was very passionate about that technology. And that's how I started a company, which is Powerfan right now. But during that time, I called it Fanbox Chan. And as a single guy in Silicon Valley, there were some reasons I can maybe not talk too detail about why I created that website in the beginning and why I was Fanbox Chan. I was a lonely guy, but also creators, YouTubers. I wanted to have them to have an opportunity to build content. And being a single guy in Silicon Valley, I wanted to network with people. I couldn't meet people during the pandemic. People were locked down. I couldn't go out. The only way I could go out was grocery shopping. They locked down California. I couldn't go to restaurants, no dating, no clubs. How am I going to meet my future wife, right? So that was the problem I had. So start my own company. I want to have people to make content on Powerfan on the blockchain, sell their content, mint NFTs, create tokens, and I wanted to have a way for people to network within there with fans and creators to connect directly without any middleman. Like, Patreon froze a lot of their content creators because they didn't like them. Maybe they were too right-wing. Maybe they were not left-wing enough. And then many people also, like for example, even OnlyFans banned accounts because they had adult content in the beginning. Maybe their investors or banks froze their bank accounts because they had adult content on OnlyFans. I wanted to have more of a free speech platform for people to create things. And in the beginning, okay, what is like the niche market I can actually attack? And since I knew some Japanese and Korea was really into anime and creators, I knew a lot of creators who were into anime at the time, and I had a lot of connections with them. And I had some people I had a little bit of a interesting relationship with. I wanted them to make money as well. So that's why it kind of sounded Japanese, fan box chan. We wanted to sell boxes of NFTs to people who had fans in kind of like the Japanese anime world, right? I was a little bit of a weeb. I was very into anime at the time. And then later we wanted to expand it to all creators who had YouTube channels, all creators who had, for example, Patreon service, but Patreon banned them maybe. So we wanted to have people who were tired of Patreon, getting banned all the time, Visa card banned them maybe, or maybe other financial services. We want to bring that all over to crypto. And that's how I started Powerfan.io. And Powerfan.io, in the beginning, I thought, hey, like who would be a great advisor? Who would be a great partner in Powerfan? And I looked all the way 10 years ago in UC Berkeley. The first guy who gave me money for my first startup in UC Berkeley, that was Jesse Krieger, who is currently my co-founder. And he became an advisor for me at the time. He's a super tall white guy, over like 190 centimeters tall dude. Very great personality, loving, good at public speaking, very charismatic, influential guy who is always just has a full of love to give. And that was the guy who I wanted as my advisor when I first started this company. So he would advise me every week. We would get on calls every week. He would connect me with this person, that person, and I talked to him about my business. I would give him tokens, Fanbox Chan tokens at the time before we rebranded to Powerfan. And he would advise me. And after speaking with him for weeks and weeks, I thought, man, I really would like this guy to be a co-founder. I would like to move to where he is. He was living at Las Vegas while I was living in Silicon Valley at the time. And I was kind of doing this at nighttime, kind of shifting after, working, at that day job at that time. So that's how, I've looked at my co-founder, Jesse Krieger right now, but during that time, he was my advisor. And for weeks and weeks, he would help out advising for my company, connect with me, with people, help out with my white paper and things like that. And I thought, hey, I'm going to quit my job and do this full time on Powerfan, which was Fanbox at the time. And I decided I'm going to move to Las Vegas where he is. He's been a tremendous help. He has so many good connections. He's been an amazing advisor. How can I have him full-time on Powerfan? And that was my idea at that time. And I decided to move to Las Vegas where the taxes were cheaper, of course, but there was a growing crypto ecosystem and a community in Las Vegas during that time. So I decided to quit my job and move to Las Vegas. I decided to go there and meet my advisor at the time, try to make him a co-founder of Powerfan. So last year, around the end of April, beginning of May, I moved to Las Vegas. I quit my job and started fully to work on Powerfan.io. We rebranded to Powerfan from Fanbox Chan to be inclusive of all creators, Spotify, Patreon, you name it. We wanted all the creators in the world to use our system. And the rest is history. Now it's been a year since we started this company. We have great engineers. We built out our DeFi staking product that is live right now. In a few weeks, we'll have our Watch YouTube to Earn platform plugin coming soon. And our creator tokens are coming out next week. So we're super excited to launch creator coins. We're excited to launch NFTs and this whole blockchain ecosystem in Powerfan. So that is the story. That is the story of my life and how I grew up and how Powerfan come along. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be part of your community and also have this interview today.